Have you ever seen a shadow cast by pure light itself? Since kindergarten, you've been taught a simple rule. Light passes through light. If you cross two flashlight beams, they just ignore each other. Ghosts passing in the night. That is not just a little wrong. It is fundamentally, reality-breakingly wrong. Here is the truth. If you crash two beams of high-energy light together, they don't just pass through each other. They slam together. They block each other. They rip a literal shadow into the beam. And in that pitch-black shadow, they instantly spawn solid, heavy, physical matter out of absolutely nothing. Light creating dark, energy creating mass. You've felt the warmth of the sun on your skin your entire life, but you probably never realized that same light is just one violent collision away from forging literal, physical metal. Today we are going to dismantle the universe. I'm going to show you how empty space isn't empty and how light isn't just a bright beam. It is the hidden, dormant seed of every object you can touch. Let me show you. Try this right now. Go grab two laser pointers or flashlights. Turn them on. Now cross the beams in the air. What happens? Nothing. Exactly. The light from the left doesn't bounce off the light from the right. It doesn't scatter. It doesn't cast a shadow on the wall. Why? Because light is made of photons, and photons have no mass. They are pure energy. They don't have hard edges. They can't hit each other like billiard balls, right? Wrong. Here's the part nobody tells you. That ghost beam effect only happens because your flashlights are weak. Weak, slow, and low energy. But physics radically changes when you turn up the dial. Imagine those photons aren't just gentle waves of room lighting. Imagine they are gamma rays, highly condensed, violently vibrating packets of pure cosmic fury. When gamma rays cross paths, the rules of the everyday world snap in half. They don't pass through each other. They collide, hard, like two freight trains made of pure math. And when they crash, they cancel out. They create a hole in the light, a literal shadow. But what exactly is hiding inside that shadow? What is hiding inside that shadow? Before I show you, we need to fix a massive lie in your head. Hold your hand up to a light source right now. Block the light. Look at the shadow it makes on the wall. What is that dark shape? People say a shadow is a dark projection, but that's just a label. A shadow is not a thing. It is a crime scene. It is the exact silhouette of where photons were murdered by your hand. The light hit your skin, its energy was absorbed by your atoms, and it died. Your hand has mass. Mass blocks light. Simple. But wait, if mass blocks light, how the hell can light block light? Stop. Think about this for a second. Light has zero mass. Zero. If I put a photon on a scale, it weighs nothing. It is just a fast-moving ripple in an electromagnetic field. So if two beams of gamma rays crash together and cast a dark shadow, what absorbed them? What blocked them? There is no hand there. There is no solid wall. There is only empty space and pure energy. This is where your intuition completely fails. If light casts a shadow, it means something physical, something solid had to block it. But there is nothing solid there. Unless the light became the solid thing. Now watch what this implies. You are used to thinking of light and matter as two totally different ingredients of the universe, like apples and oranges. Light is the fast, bouncy stuff. Matter is the heavy, stubborn stuff, right? Wrong. Nature doesn't care about your neat little categories. Nature only cares about energy. When those two high-energy gamma photons slam together head-on, they don't just disappear. The universe refuses to let energy vanish. The cosmic ledger must balance. So the violent collision creates a bottleneck, a breaking point in reality itself. The photons hit, they stop, the energy compresses, twists, and violently folds inward. And in less than a billionth of a second, they forge something utterly impossible. Let me introduce you to the strangest mechanism in physics. Welcome to 1934. Two physicists, Gregory Bright and John Wheeler, are staring at a piece of paper. They've just written down a math equation that looks like absolute magic. It describes a process so violent, so physically absurd, it would take nearly a century for anyone to actually prove it. It's called the Bright-Wheeler process. That sounds impossible until you see the trick. Close your eyes and imagine a game of cosmic pool. You have two cue balls on the table, but these aren't made of resin or clay. They are made of pure, screaming, highly concentrated light, gamma-ray photons. You shoot them at each other, fast. Not everyday fast, 300 million meters per second fast. When they hit, there is no clack sound. They don't bounce off into the corner pocket. Instead, the moment they touch, the sheer concentration of energy violently breaks the local fabric of space. Look closely at what just happened. The two photons of light are gone, erased from existence, and sitting exactly where they crashed are two brand new objects, an electron and its antimatter evil twin, a positron. Literal, physical matter, real stuff with mass, stuff you can hold. Wait, where did the mass come from? The light had zero mass. Now suddenly there is heavy mass? Exactly. It is like crashing two loud sounds together and suddenly a solid brick drops out of thin air. Or whispering two words across a room and having a heavy piece of iron fall on your foot. It breaks your brain because you still think of stuff and energy as two completely different things. If these colliding photons were the size of actual pool balls, the energy packed inside them would equal the explosive force of millions of lightning bolts. All that cosmic fury compressed into a microscopic geometric point. It can't just bounce away. The universe simply cannot handle the strain. So reality snaps. It freezes the light's energy into a physical shell. The photon is the hammer. The anvil is empty space itself. And the spark that flies off, that is the physical electron and positron. Because the light was consumed to forge those particles, a shadow is left behind. The beam of light literally blocked itself by instantly turning into solid matter. But how does the universe actually pull this off? To understand the cheat code Breit and Wheeler discovered, we have to look at the single most famous equation in all of human history, except we have to read it entirely backwards. You know the equation. Everybody knows the equation. E equals mc squared, Albert Einstein, 1905, the holy grail of physics. But I guarantee you've been reading it wrong your entire life. People say this equation explains how the universe works, but that's just a label. What it really is a cosmic exchange rate, like trading dollars for euros at a bank. E is energy. M is mass, the heavy stuff you can touch. The C2 is just the conversion fee, the speed of light squared, a massively huge number. Think of someone you know who loves money. If they hand the bank a tiny microscopic amount of mass, like the splitting of a single uranium atom, the bank hands them back a terrifying amount of energy. That's an atomic bomb. That's the nuclear fire of the sun burning your skin. A microscopic speck of heavy stuff creates a literal explosion of blinding light and heat. But here's the part nobody tells you. Equations have an equal sign. They go both ways. You can walk into that exact same cosmic bank, slam a massive pile of pure energy on the counter, and demand physical matter in return. Wait, can you actually do that? Yes, but the exchange rate is brutally unforgiving. Because C2 is such a massive number, it takes an astronomical, mind-bending amount of energy to buy even a tiny speck of physical mass. If a grain of sand were converted to pure energy, it would obliterate a city. So to create a single grain of sand out of pure energy, you need a city-destroying amount of light. That sounds impossible until you see the trick. When our two gamma-ray photons crash, they aren't just bumping into each other. They are depositing all their raw, vibrating energy onto the counter of the universe simultaneously. The universe looks at the deposit. It does the math. It takes the kinetic energy, divides it by the speed of light squared, and spits out the exact equivalent in physical mass. Pop! An electron and a positron instantly appear. Light goes in, solid, heavy matter comes out. The dark shadow left behind is literally just the empty space where the light used to be, right before it was violently frozen into a physical object. But this raises a terrifying question. If light can instantly become matter just by crashing, what exactly is matter? If you were made of matter, what are you? People say mass is solid, but that's just a label. Hold your hand out again. Look at your fingers. Knock on a desk. Solid, right? Hard. Permanent. Wrong. This is where your intuition fails. This is where the illusion breaks. Let me tell you about the time you realized everything is a lie. Look closer at that desk. Zoom in, past the wood grain, past the cells, down into the atoms. What is an atom? A tiny solar system of hard little balls orbiting each other. Absolutely not. That's a cartoon they teach you in middle school, so you don't panic. Atoms are almost entirely empty space. If the nucleus of a carbon atom in your desk were the size of a marble sitting on the 50-yard line of a football stadium, the electrons wouldn't even be in the stadium. They'd be tiny gnats buzzing around the parking lot. So what is actually solid about the desk? Nothing. The only reason your hand doesn't pass right through the wood is because the gnats in your hand are violently repelling the gnats in the desk. Electromagnetic force. Invisible vibrating fields of energy pushing against each other. That solid feeling is just an illusion created by energy fields screaming at each other to stay away. But wait, it gets weirder. If the electrons are just tiny points of charge, and the nucleus is just a tighter clump of points, where is the actual stuff? Here's the secret hiding in plain sight. Deep down inside those protons and neutrons in the nucleus, there are even smaller things called quarks. And those quarks are held together by gluons. Gluons have zero mass, just like photons. They are pure energy, snapping and violently pulling the quarks together. In fact, 99% of the mass of a proton isn't the physical stuff of the quarks at all. It is the raw, vibrating kinetic energy of the gluons tying them together. Energy moving so fast, vibrating so intensely, that it acts heavy. Let me say that again because it should terrify you. Almost all of your body weight is nothing but the frantic trapped energy of massless particles vibrating at the speed of light. You are not solid. You are a localized storm of trapped energy. You are frozen light. When those two gamma rays crash and instantly forge an electron and a positron out of thin air, they aren't creating a new type of substance. They are just getting tangled. The pure energy of the light is folding in on itself, tying a microscopic knot in the fabric of the universe. And that knot, we call it an electron. So if light creates matter, how exactly does the shadow work? What happens to the beam when the knot is tied? So if light creates matter, how exactly does the shadow work? What happens to the beam when the knot is tied? Think about this for a second. You shine a beam of light, a photon of gamma ray energy. It travels forward at the speed of light. It is on a straight path from the source to the wall behind it. If it hits the wall, it delivers its energy as a bright, glowing spot. But it never makes it, because halfway across the room, it violently collides with another gamma ray photon coming from the side. Here's the part nobody tells you. When those two photons crash and forge that electron-positron pair, the photons do not exist anymore. They are dead, gone, consumed. The universe took their raw kinetic energy and folded it into two tiny physical knots of matter. But what about the path they were on? What about the wall behind them? Exactly. The wall is now missing a photon. The light that was supposed to hit it was intercepted and destroyed mid-flight. And what do we call a spot on a wall where light was blocked from hitting it? A shadow. It is a literal, physical, dark spot, created entirely because the light turned into matter before it could arrive. Look closely at what just happened. You didn't put a hand in front of the beam. You didn't put a piece of metal or a brick. The light itself became the brick. The energy crashed, spun into a physical mass, and the beam absorbed itself. It is like throwing a snowball, and mid-air it spontaneously condenses into a heavy stone and drops to the floor. The person you threw it at never gets hit. The snowball cast a shadow on them by disappearing into a rock. People say shadows are dark shapes, but that's just a label. This shadow is the ghost of the light. It is the footprint of a violent, universe-breaking transformation. But wait, if this happens, why don't we see it every day? Why don't flashlights drop physical particles when you cross them in the dark? Because of the exchange rate, the C2 problem. Visible light, the stuff from your phone, the sun, your flashlight, is pathetic. It is incredibly low energy. If you smash two visible light photons together, nothing happens. They don't have enough juice to buy even a tiny fraction of an electron's mass. They just pass through each other like ghosts, exactly like you learned in kindergarten. To break reality, you need gamma rays, photons with millions of times more energy than the light you can see. And right here, physics breaks down. Because for 80 years after Bright and Wheeler wrote their equation, nobody could actually prove it. It was too hard. The energy required was too massive. The lasers didn't exist. Until they did. Until physicists built a machine big enough, violent enough, to force the universe to show its hand. Welcome to New York, the relativistic heavy ion collider. They call it RHIC. Inside this massive underground ring, scientists weren't just playing with flashlights, they were playing God. They needed to prove Bright and Wheeler right. They needed to see light create matter and cast a shadow. But how do you get gamma rays bright enough to crash into each other? You can't just build a giant laser pointer. The technology isn't there. So they cheated. They took atoms of gold, heavy, massive atoms packed with protons. They stripped away all the electrons, leaving just the raw, dense, positively charged nucleus. Then they fired these gold ions around the ring in opposite directions, faster, faster, until they were moving at 99.995% the speed of light. Here's the secret hiding in plain sight. When you accelerate a massive electric charge to nearly the speed of light, it drags a massive electromagnetic field along with it. Think of a speedboat roaring across a calm lake, dragging a huge wake behind it. That wake of energy surrounding the gold ion is made of photons, not gentle visible light. Because the ion is moving so violently fast, those photons are compressed into a blindingly intense cloud of gamma rays. Now watch what this implies. They didn't actually smash the gold ions together. That would just be a messy nuclear explosion of quarks and gluons. Instead, they aimed them just slightly off-center, a near miss. The gold ions sped past each other, but their wakes, their intense clouds of gamma-ray photons, did not. The clouds crashed. Two fields of pure, screaming light slammed into each other at the speed of light. And right there, in the detectors of the star experiment, physics broke exactly the way Bright and Wheeler predicted. The collision didn't create a flash of light. It created a localized shadow in the gamma-ray field. And out of that shadow, thousands of electron-positron pairs burst into existence. Matter. Physical, heavy electron matter. Created entirely from the raw energy of the light crashing together. Look closely at what just happened. The scientists didn't start with electrons. They didn't start with positrons. They started with pure energy, photons, and forced the universe to convert them into physical mass. The equation worked. E equals mc squared in reverse. They literally caught light casting a shadow by turning into a physical object. It wasn't magic. It wasn't science fiction. It was cold, hard data lighting up a computer screen. But wait, it gets weirder. If this happens in a heavily controlled multi-billion-dollar laboratory in New York, What happens when the universe does this on its own? Because the universe doesn't need a collider. It has black holes. It has supernovas. I want you to imagine the scale of this. We just saw tiny microscopic specks of gold crashing in a tube to create a handful of electrons. But what if the universe is doing this all the time? What if space is literally filled with light turning into solid matter? Think about this for a second. Look up at the night sky. People say outer space is a cold, dead, empty vacuum, but that's just a label. It is a violent, chaotic washing machine of extreme energy. Right now, as you watch this video, hypermassive stars are collapsing across the universe. When a giant star dies, it doesn't just quietly turn off. It violently crushes its own core under the weight of gravity. The collapse triggers the most powerful explosion since the Big Bang, a supernova, or worse, a gamma-ray burst. Here's the part nobody tells you. When a gamma-ray burst fires, it unleashes more energy in 10 seconds than our sun will produce in its entire 10 billion-year life. It is a blinding, screaming beam of pure, concentrated light ripping across the cosmos. And right there, physics breaks down again. Because when that beam fires, it isn't just traveling through empty space. It is plowing through a fog of other light. Cosmic microwave background radiation, starlight. Now watch what this implies. Those hyper-energetic gamma rays from the burst are violently crashing into lower energy photons floating in space. And just like in the Star Collider, they don't pass through each other. They slam together. The universe is constantly, actively forging literal matter out of pure starlight, trillions upon trillions of times a second. Out in the freezing void of deep space, light beams are crossing paths. And every time they cross with enough energy, they snap into an electron and a positron. They cast a shadow in the beam of the gamma-ray burst. The universe is churning light into physical dust. If you could see the universe with gamma-ray eyes, you wouldn't just see bright flashes of light. You would see massive, dark, sprawling shadows cast by the light itself, as it instantly freezes into solid matter. It is a continuous, invisible snowstorm of new particles being born from the death of light. And if that is happening right now, out in the cosmos, what does that mean for you? What does that mean for the device you are holding, the chair you are sitting on? Because if light can become matter, and matter can become light, let me say that again because it should terrify you. The boundary between energy and physical reality is a complete illusion. The boundary between energy and physical reality is a complete illusion. This is where your intuition completely fails. You've spent your entire life believing you are made of solid, permanent things. Atoms, molecules, flesh, bone. You look in the mirror and you see a physical object. Wrong. Let me tell you about the time you realized you were just a temporary arrangement of energy. If light can crash together and instantly freeze into a physical electron, if the Bright-Wheeler process is real, and we just saw the lab data proving it is, then everything changes. Here's the secret hiding in plain sight. The particles that make up your body right now, the electrons orbiting your carbon atoms, the quarks inside your protons, they are not fundamentally different from the light shining out of your phone screen. They are just energy that got stuck, energy that crashed, tied a knot in the fabric of the universe and hasn't untied itself yet. Think about this for a second. You are not a solid object moving through a universe of light. You are the light. You are a massive, incredibly complex, slowly degrading knot of pure energy that has temporarily taken on the illusion of mass. People say matter is stuff, but that's just a label. Matter is just trapped light. Matter is energy with a speed limit. When you die, your body will break down. Your atoms will scatter into the dirt. But eventually, billions of years from now, when the sun swells and swallows the earth in nuclear fire, those atoms will be ripped apart. The electrons will be stripped away. The nucleus will dissolve, and the energy that was once you will be untied. It will be converted back into raw, screaming photons of light, and that light will shoot out into the freezing void of deep space, traveling for eternity, until, maybe, it crashes into another beam of light, and the cycle starts all over again. A shadow is cast, a new particle is born, a new piece of matter is forged from the ashes of your old energy. Look closely at what just happened. There is no permanent stuff. There is only a terrifying, beautiful dance of energy folding and unfolding across eternity. But wait, it gets weirder. If this is true, what does it mean for the very beginning of everything? If you trace this cycle all the way back to the moment the universe was born, let me show you. Let me show you the beginning of everything. Rewind the clock 13.8 billion years, back to the very first fraction of a second of the universe. There was no matter, no dust, no planets, no carbon, no flesh, no bone. There was only a blinding, infinitely dense, violently boiling ocean of pure energy, light. Screaming, formless, massless light. But as space expanded and cooled, that light started to cross paths. It started to crash. Here's the part nobody tells you. The Bright Wheeler process wasn't just a freak anomaly we forced inside a New York collider. It is the exact mechanism that built you. In that primordial fire, trillions of times a microsecond, hyper-energetic photons slammed together. They canceled each other out. They ripped microscopic shadows across the early universe. And inside those pitch-black shadows, the universe violently froze. The very first physical matter burst into existence. Electrons, quarks, the heavy, stubborn building blocks of everything you have ever loved. So far, we've learned that light isn't a passing ghost, and everyday matter isn't actually solid. We've seen how the most famous equation in history, E=mc², runs brutally backwards. We watched pure cosmic kinetic fury crash, fold, and spawn heavy mass out of thin air. But this is the deep truth I want to leave you with. Think about this for a second. Look down at your hands one last time. Every single particle in your skin was forged in the shadow of colliding light. You are not a physical object that happens to absorb or reflect energy. You are a localized, temporary knot of 13.8 billion-year-old light that violently crashed and got stuck. You are the literal, physical shadow left behind by a cosmic collision. People say we are made of stardust, but that's just the label to make it sound poetic. The reality is much stranger and much more beautiful. You are made of starlight that forgot how to move. One day the physics will balance out. The knot will finally untie. Your mass will dissolve, the energy will be released, and you will become pure light again. But right now, in this tiny window of cosmic time, you get to experience the sheer impossible absurdity of being solid. If this shifted how you see your own reality, hit the like button and subscribe. It tells the algorithm to push this video to other people whose reality needs breaking. The next time you step outside on a bright sunny day, look down at the dark silhouette you leave on the concrete. Realize the truth. You aren't just casting a shadow, you are one.